O'Reilly here. Welcome to the No Spin News, Monday, October 6, 2025. Stand up for your country. Well, I talked to President Trump on Friday about a number of things. He told me how hard he's working, and I don't think there's any doubt about that. So I researched over the weekend. We did voluminous research for confronting the presidents, whether there has ever been a chief executive that's worked harder than Donald Trump. Two names surfaced, and it's not that definitively they worked harder, but they're in that category. Abraham Lincoln round the clock almost, and you'll be surprised by this name, Harry Truman. Harry Truman, when FDR died, had to do all of the post-World War II stuff, and then Korea, the war in Korea. Harry couldn't get a break. But Harry spaced it out. He got a massage every day. President Truman made that time for himself. Donald Trump just works almost around the clock. It's amazing. Anyway, we will have some information about my chat a little later on in the week. These are off-the-record chats, but he is very forthcoming to me, as he always has been for 35 years, and it gives me a big advantage in reporting stories, that's for sure. The subject of the Talking Points memo this evening is this ongoing government shutdown, which, is heavily misreported. This drives me nuts, but there's nothing I can do about it other than to tell you the truth, which is why you're here watching and listening to me. All right, so the shutdown's in day 6. And there are people getting hurt, people who work for the federal government, the tour in the parks, things like that. I suspect it's not going to last all that much longer, but I could be wrong on that. Now, it's all about the Democrats being very angry about the big, beautiful bill. Remember the big, beautiful bill? Signed into law on July 4th. Furious. Because that bill mitigated government spending in a bunch of areas, but one in particular, health care. It said no Medicaid payments unless you're looking for a job. The progressive left Democratic Party went wild with that. They hate that. I don't know what the big deal is. I mean, that bill was leading with you can volunteer. If you can't look for a job physically, if you're infirmed, you can get a doctor's note. I mean, my God. But the progressive left doesn't want any restraints at all. So they're trying to, what they call, claw back some of the restrictions from the big, beautiful bill on health care spending. And the Democrats are saying, if you don't give us these give backs, we're going to keep the government shut down. That's what's going on. And there's an ancillary thing about illegal immigration also. Now, the press doesn't understand what this is all about, doesn't particularly care, just wants to blame Trump. We know the game. And so they're sympathetic to the Democratic Party and House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. Roll of tape.
If Republicans continue to refuse to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits, tens of millions of American taxpayers are going to experience dramatically increased premiums, copays, and deductibles. And that information from their insurance companies is going out right now. Now, federal law clearly prohibits the expenditure of taxpayer dollars to provide health care to undocumented immigrants, period, full stop. And no Democrat on Capitol Hill is trying to change that law.
All right, well, that's simply gibberish. Number one, the Republican Party has clearly stated we will negotiate an extension of the Affordable Care Act. But we're just not going to do a mandate for you to throw everything you want back in the hopper when we passed a tax and spend law on July 4th. That makes sense to me. The Republicans say we will negotiate a new, not a new law, but a new spending parameter, okay? Remember, we're $37 trillion in debt here. And by Jeffries saying that full stop, which is a terrible cliche, that's not true. So the following states do give taxpayer health care to migrants, to illegal aliens: Oregon, California, Minnesota, Washington, D.C., not a state. And then other states give subsidies: Washington, Colorado, New York, Illinois. This all comes from the National Immigration Law Center. Okay, so don't tell me that taxpayer money isn't going for the health care of illegal immigrants. It is. Not across the board, but in those big places. Now, those are big states. And California has the biggest nut. I mean, California, New York, Illinois, these are big states. This is trillions of dollars of health care going to undocumented people. Well, no, it's not. It's not. Yeah, it is. And it goes through the Medicaid process. It's not direct payments, it goes through it. So, but you would think that the woman interviewing Jeffries would say, well, wait, O'Reilly has this information. What about this? So Jeffries, what would he say? Would he deny it? Couldn't. Okay, so we are in a situation where what's likely to happen is there will be set negotiations on the affordable health care, which I support to some extent, not for undocumented migrants, of course. But if you are a destitute person in America, you need some kind of coverage. So if you're an 85-year-old widow and you are under siege, you can't let these people die. You can't. Okay? If you hard right people who are, sorry, and there are millions of people in that circumstance. I know it's abused, but come on. So let's negotiate, all right, a fair system, but don't shut down the government. And that's the memo. America is more dangerous than ever with violent crime on the rise. While you could rely on a firearm, using deadly force today can land you in court, costing you years and your life savings, trying to prove you acted in self-defense. FBI data shows 99.9% of all altercations do not require lethal force. That's why smart Americans are turning to Byrna. Proudly made in Fort Wayne, Indiana, Byrna's less lethal self-defense launchers are trusted by law enforcement, private security, more than 600,000 citizens. Byrna launchers fire kinetic rounds and powerful tear gas or pepper projectiles, able to stop a threat up to 60 feet away. No background checks, no waiting periods, delivered right to your door. Take control, be ready. Visit Byrna.com today. That's BYRNA.com, or head to your local Sportsman's Warehouse. Joining us now from Florida is a constitutional attorney. Now, this guy has been around. Bruce Fein was general counsel of the FCC under President Reagan, participated in the drafting of articles of impeachment against Nixon and Bill Clinton. Wow. Quite the resume, counselor.
Flattery will get you everywhere.
Well, it's okay. I'm telling the truth. We only get the best guests on this program. All right, so am I reading this wrong, that the Trump administration probably will win this in the Supreme Court?
I think right now the jury is out, but let me add a couple of footnotes to your opening observations. The power to utilize the military to enforce the law is not in the Constitution. It's in congressional statutes. Shays' Rebellion actually occurred before the Constitution in 1786, but those are small things. At present, we do know that there's a statute. At least now, President Trump has refrained from invoking. It's called the Insurrection Act of 1807. It was urged by some to be utilized with regard to many of the protests that surfaced after George Floyd killing, but President Trump, I think he was concerned that the military wasn't completely supportive of invoking the Insurrection Act that says, in times when there's sufficient chaos and disruption that the enforcement of federal laws is severely compromised, he can utilize the military. It is what's called an exception to the Posse Comitatus Act of 1877, which says ordinarily you can't use the military to enforce civilian law unless Congress by statute creates an exception.
Okay, let me stop you there.
Okay.
Let me push back. So the Shays Rebellion came under the Articles of Confederation, which were then incorporated into the U.S. Constitution. In 1871, U.S. Grant ordered federal troops to South Carolina without congressional approval to put down a Ku Klux Klan. It was like a war. And the federal troops went in, and it was violent shooting, all kinds of stuff. Okay? Then the city of New Orleans and others were taken over by the federal government because they would not ensure public safety. You'll remember that. There were actually law enforcement agents from New York City that were appointed to run the New Orleans Police Department with federal oversight. So you're correct in your interpretation, but there is that clause that there are exceptions to the Posse Comitatus law when the public or federal facilities or people are deemed to be in danger, correct?
Well, I mean, I think I'd never like to be disputatious, but I add a little bit of context here. Remember, those invocations by President Grant were during Reconstruction, where there are military governments running all of the South. Reconstruction did not end until at least 1877.
Yeah, but it didn't matter because the South Carolinian authorities had their own elected officials, and they would not deal with the Ku Klux Klan. That's why Grant wrote the order.
Yeah, right, but that was before the Posse Comitatus Act, and
it was 6 years before.
It was based upon Reconstruction law. But I'm just saying, Bill, there's nothing in the express language of the Constitution that addresses this issue. It does say in Article 1, Section 9, that Congress may suspend the writ of habeas corpus and you could impose martial law, so to speak. But that's Congress, not the executive branch. And here, at least at present, Mr. Trump is not Congress to do anything, including expand.
So then you would say that the Trump lawyers are going to raise the Insurrection Act. That would be the way to go, correct?
If they want to,
well, they're going to have to defend it.
Yes.
They're going to have to.
No, I think that is correct, and say that was contemplated during the George Floyd demonstrations, many of which erupted into violence. But Trump decided, for his own reasons, not to invoke the Insurrection Act. But I underscore the importance, in my mind, is always process over personalities. That's what the process is, and Congress can expand the instances in which a president can use the military by statute, but has to amend the law and make it as possible it can be justified. And the law is pretty clear, Bill, that the dividing line between when we have ordinary law enforcement and these extraordinary occasions when the president can intercede is basically when the court system has broken down. We know that courts are there because people do violate the law from time to time. There are massive violations during Prohibition.
Okay, but let me stop you there. Sanctuary cities defy the law.
Yeah.
Chicago and Portland are sanctuary cities. So that go ahead.
It's more complicated, Bill, for this reason, and I don't want to sound like a lawyer.
No, just shoot it. Go ahead.
This is the U.S. Supreme Court, and it arose with regard to gun control. And the Supreme Court held you cannot coerce state authorities to enforce federal law, right? Immigration law is federal law. It's exclusively entrusted to Congress and the executive in Article 1, Section 8. And the courts have held that you cannot compel a state to assist in immigration enforcement. A state may choose to cooperate, fair enough, right? And the federal government can utilize as many ICE agents they want to enforce federal law. So it's a little bit misleading to say you may disagree with the decision of a state to say we don't want to help enforce the law.
But
remember, help is different than
what was the difference
interfere.
then? What would be the difference then? You can flood the zone with ICE agents, But why not National Guard? It's the same protective apparatus. Look, when the feds took over, you were around. You were around. Wait a minute. You were around when the federal government took over the city of New Orleans Police Department. Okay? Yeah. They did it citing public safety, that the police department in New Orleans, the state of Louisiana, was not able to protect the citizenry. The same law that was used to send the Guard into LA when there were the riots, when the police chief of Los Angeles said, we can't handle this, and clearly said it, and our people are in danger, bang, the Guard went in, and the courts allowed them to go in, correct?
Yes, correct. And the reason was because the state authorities were saying, we cannot enforce the law.
Just the police chief. The governor wouldn't. The governor repudiated it, and so did the legislature.
He wasn't contradicted. The states weren't. I mean, the governor wasn't contradicting that. Here we have a situation which is a little more complex, where the governors are saying we can handle this issue. We don't need assistance, and at least at present, it doesn't appear as though the federal officials being sent in are confined to simply enforcing the immigration laws, which they're entitled to do. And
all right, let me challenge again.
As many agents as he wishes.
If you have a chief of patrol sending out a message to cops, do not protect ICE agents, as you have in Chicago, that seems to me to be all you need to send in National Guard to protect the ICE agents.
Well, I agree with that, and the National Guard could go in and protect the ICE agents for sure, just like he can send in the Guard to protect federal buildings, including ICE buildings, if they're attacked. I have no doubt about that. I think some of the litigation bill is because some of the federal interveners are going beyond simply enforcing the immigration laws and protecting ICE agents, although they're doing that as well. But I do not, and if it comes to the U.S. Supreme Court, I have no doubt that with regard to federal officials enforcing federal law, that the Supreme Court will say Trump, under existing statutes, can dispose of the National Guard, the military, to accomplish that function. To the extent there's a dispute, it's whether they can go beyond the federal functions and enforce the law more generally.
Okay, that seems to be logical. But, you know, the National Guard isn't making any arrests in D.C., where it's posted, and wouldn't make any arrests in Portland or Chicago. They're there to contain the violence, and the arrests are being made by federal agents. Primarily, you know that. The Guard hasn't made any arrests. So that would take that issue away from the judges that are trying to stay it.
Well, it's oftentimes the law is very complicated, and lawyers draw lines that maybe are mysterious to lay people. But even if they're not making arrests, the statute says that you can be summoned to protect federal buildings, federal officers in the discharge of federal responsibilities. But it doesn't say, as long as you don't make arrests, you can go ahead and police for other purposes, at least if the state officials don't want it. My view is that the immigration is the chief issue. Why are you going? And if you're asking for an electoral mandate, Trump did get a mandate with regard to immigration, but I don't think he got a mandate for every other law.
Right. Well, immigration, certainly in Chicago, I think that's the property in Portland, Oregon, that'll upset. But I'm going to predict here, Counselor, that the Supreme Court will allow the Guard to go in, and basically about what you said. But I don't know whether they're going to be that specific in spelling out exactly what the Guard can and can't do. That would be unusual for the court to do that. Last word.
No, it wouldn't. I study the court, read a lot of their opinions. No, sometimes they can be very precise. You can go this far, but no further. They don't have to do that. After all, they're the final word, right? But it wouldn't be unique in the annals of Supreme Court. No,
but this is a political court.
This is what you need to do.
This is a political court. And I don't know whether it's going to be 6-3 or 5-4. It might be 5-4. But I think they're going to give Trump the authority to do this because they understand that the locals and states are undermining the federal government here. That's how I see it.
And I want to make one thing clear, Bill. I do think it becomes constitutionally suspect for a state to say we're not going to help or protect ICE agents, but others we will protect, because the U.S. Supreme Court has also said you can't single out federal operations for discrimination. Once you have state authorities out there, you can't, insofar as they're discharging their duties, say we'll protect everything except the feds. That doesn't work. The Supreme Court has said it's got to be even-handed if you have the authority at all.
All right. You think I should take the bar exam, Counselor? That was a good discussion. I appreciate your expertise. And we'll have you back after they rule, because they're going to have to rule fast on this. So thank you very much, Counselor. We appreciate it. Homeowners, when is the last time you checked on your home title? If your answer is never, then this is for you. Scammers are stealing titles, and your equity is a target. Criminals forge your signature. Just like that, your home title can be transferred out of your name. That's why I partnered up with Home Title Lock, so you can find out today if you're already a victim. Please use my promo code BILL at HometitleLock.com, and you'll get a free title history report. Plus, you will get a free trial of their $1 million triple lock protection. That's 24/7 monitoring of your title, urgent alerts of any changes, and if fraud does happen, they'll spend up to $1 million to fix it. That's HometitleLock.com, promo code BILL. Cold and flu season coming on up. We all know it. And it really is nothing to take lightly. So when people start getting sick all across the country, medications disappear. Everybody wants it at the same time. So it's very, very smart to have a pharmacy you can count on, like All Family Pharmacy. Right now, they're helping Americans get ahead of the curve with 10% off antibiotics, antivirals, other essentials. You know how important it is to have the right meds when you get sick, particularly when your kids get sick. You don't want to be going into the doctor's office, spending all the time. You want to have them at your home. So if you have a few months' supply, you don't have to worry. And that's what we're doing here. If you believe in medical freedom, okay, and taking care of your family, as I do, this is the pharmacy for you. Please go to allfamilypharmacy.com/Bill. Use code BILL10 to save 10%. Okay, very busy couple of weeks here. We'll be going down to D.C. for the Three Americans show on October 15th. And then on this Thursday, 3 days from now, got the Q&A live just for Premium and Concierge members on BillO'Reilly.com. So if you're not one, please sign up, get all the benefits. We will answer all of your questions about confronting evil. I'm going to bring in Josh Hammer, my new co-author. You get to look at him, see him, scold him, yell at him, and send your questions to BillO'Reilly.com/live. BillO'Reilly.com/live. So it's this Thursday, 9 Eastern, right after I'm going to do Cuomo at 8 on News Nation. Then I'm going to come into our studio and do the Q&A with Hammer. We'll answer all of your questions about it. It'll be a lot of fun. These things have worked great in the past. And we want your feedback. You know, if there's something in there you didn't like or something you want more information on, we're happy to give it to you. Once again, that address is BillO'Reilly.com/live. So we've got lots of stuff going on here. And as always, we thank you very much for watching the No Spin News. I'm Bill O'Reilly. We'll see you again tomorrow. Thank you for watching. To view full episodes of the No Spin News anytime, sign up to become a BillO'Reilly.com Premium or Concierge member today.